come! You ready? You're no brother of mine! Just give up. I find you repugnant, and it's hard to believe that you have memories of me. I have a few. I remember that as a baby you used to laugh and cry. You acted way more human!
Hello everybody, MegaZardX here. I'm back at it again to give y'all another very exciting Fire Force episode review. However, this time with a little bit of a twist, because normally I'll just be reviewing the Fire Force episode 23 review right now though. But actually, David Productions actually, decided to make the call and say, you know what, instead of just releasing episode 23 for this week, we're actually going to release 23 and 24. So I was like, oh, okay. And I'm not sure exactly why they chose to do this, whether they're trying to make up for lost time, because, this anime has been delayed so many times throughout the history of it airing, or if it was somewhat kind of related with the sales of their DVD sales or whatever though. Regardless of the fact, they just decided maybe they were just super nice and they just decided to give us 2 episodes in one. So basically we got 23 and 24. So this is technically going to be my last Fire Force review. So it's been a blast reviewing all of these though, but I'm going to try to end it off on a really good note though. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about and discuss within both of these episodes. So I'm going to be reviewing episode 23, which is Smiles, and episode 24, The Burning Pass. So overall, oh gosh, we got a lot of questions and a lot of answers that were actually revealed in these couple of episodes. Some things that we really wanted to know for some answers since the very beginning of Fire Force, whenever it first aired though. So overall, it was pretty good in terms of the action and stuff, and the way how they concluded it was also really good, but at the same time, it still sort of kind of somewhat-ish kind of left us off on a cliffhanger to get us ready for what would be the second part of Fire Force, which I'll discuss at the very tail end of this review though, for the double in one review though. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive straight up into this episode 23 review of Fire Force.
I said to get out of my hair! I need you to see that we're brothers! Stop this! No way! I'm not stopping until I get the real you back! I'll go faster than light. Fly back to the time when we were a family! And take hold of it!
So starting off at the very beginning of the episode, we're basically picking off from the tail ending moments of episode 22, where Shinra is still facing Sho, and that conflict was going on back and forth. And if you remember from some of the last stuff that was said in the previous episode, Professor Lick, or Dr. Lick, basically said, hey, you know what, Shinra, you're about to get to the point of overheating, and when you try to move at the speed of light, if you get caught up moving at the speed of light during an event where you're overheating, hey, you might not be able to reform and get back into your actual body though. But Shinra's like, no, I'm gonna push beyond my limits and I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna save Sho. And that, by golly, that's what he was gonna do. And he actually pushed himself to the speed of light, because he basically told Sho, hey, you know what, no matter what happens, I am gonna make sure that you come back into the light, because hey, I left you alone for these several years, thought that you were dead, but if I knew that you were alive, I would have been coming for you though. So essentially, he's moving at the speed of light, and you get to see a various amount of different montages and just different backstories and stuff of Shinra showing everything in his past, whether it be him and his younger self, visions of their mom, Sho whenever he was a baby. He's just trying to kind of connect all of that stuff, and you kind of see them in this kind of like a weird kind of like voidless thing, and all of these different memories are kind of hitting Sho, and Sho's just kind of ripping it off his face, because all this time Sho was living with other different people that are associated with the White Clad, and he never saw Shinra, or he never saw or remembered his mom or whatever though. And, you know, it'll just be weird for some random person off the street to say, hey, you know what, you're my brother, hey, come follow me. No, that just wouldn't, you know, quite fly or anything like that, though. So, essentially, you know, you got to see many different things of his past. You got to see Shinra, how, you know, people were calling him Devil because, you know, he always had this weird, funky look on his face, you know, with the weird smile whenever he was nervous. And that all originated after the event of whenever Shinra experienced that fire, since, you know, he lost his brother and his mom. And it just went through a lot of different various things in the past, though. But eventually there was this one moment during all of this that it finally started to get to Sho towards the very end, and Sho actually was like, wait a minute, am I crying? And he started to actually relate with him, and it seemed at this moment that Shinra finally was able to break down the wall between him and Sho, thanks to the Adola link and him being able to transfer all those various different memories of his family, you know, with Sho. And, you know, all this time, Sho has been kind of living in this darkness, and it's sort of kind of like a sweet metaphor because, you know, he's been associated with the White Clad all this time, though. But if Shinra would have knew something about it, he would have came running to go save his brother, though. So Shinra was like, you know what? I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry for leaving you in the dark like this. I know you're crying and everything, though. But you know what? Everything's all right, though. And he hugs him. But it was at this moment where, you know, he was smiling or whatever, though. And it looked like everything was sweet bliss, though. But all of a sudden, you just see this big old blade struck through the chest of Shinra. And I was like, wait a second, how the heck did this happen? But, however, if you remember, Shinra was going so fast at the speed of light, he didn't have full control of it, and it might have been partially due to him and his overheating, though. And it was at that moment where, you know, he basically lost control for a brief moment, and that was what, you know, caused him to impale himself on Sho's sword, though. So, yeah, it was a little rough moment right there, though. And then it was at this moment where, you know, since Sho actually started to kind of get a sense of who he was or what he used to be, you know, as an infant or whatever, though, he started to have a lot more questions in terms of, you know, what all is going on, why am I associated with here, what is y'all's true goal and objective. It's like as if his eyes were actually open at this moment, though. And he started to sort of kind of ask Hamea all these different questions, though, but she was like, oh, you know what? She essentially kind of brushed it off and was like, you know what, hey, you don't need to know anything about it, though. And then Hamea basically started, you know, laying down all the different objectives that the White Clad actually had in terms of everything. And they essentially want to collect a whole lot of Adola bursts in order to cause another great cataclysm. Because the first great cataclysm actually, you know, burnt a lot of different parts of the world, but it did not burn everything. And then this is the reason why they're trying to collect more Adola bursts, is for the fact of the matter that, hey, if we can get more, we can cause another one that basically will be able to burn the whole entire world for the first time, though. And then Sho's over here just asking, you know, Hamea more questions. And then, obviously, you know, she ain't going to answer it, though. And then she uses her electrical powers and kind of zaps him. And he's like, oh, shoot, what happened? And then he just kind of falls down. And then Shinra's like, Sho, wait. And it was at this point where, you know, things started to go down south. And just whenever Shinra thought he about to have Sho back to him, you know, it seemed like, you know, things were looking pretty bad, and as if like he was about to go back to the enemy side. But all of a sudden, we get to see a bullet fly out of nowhere, and we get to see Lieutenant Hinawa come in. And then we get to see Arthur over here swinging the sword and giving Hamea a good whacking. And then he was like, dang, he's like, man, I gotta go save Sho, Shinra was like. And then, you know, Arthur's down here looking at him, like, crap, this dude got a sword through his chest. You know what? He's like, you know, I really don't like this man, though, but man, you need to stop talking. Like we'll handle this. And it's at this moment where we figure out that Hamea's power and what it really is basically she sends out like electric signals, and she's able to use those electric signals to actually tap into a person's nervous system. So that's how she was able to basically, you know, zap Sho, have him fall down, and immediately get up and start, start walking, kind of running out of the place, though. And she tried to use that on Arthur over here. However, you know, with Arthur, it didn't faze him, and she was like, no dice? But it's because of the fact of the matter that Arthur is using a photon sword, which is actually made out of plasma. So that plasma is actually throwing off her electric signal. So she wasn't able to efficiently be able to use her powers to the extent of what she would have. Otherwise, she probably would have zapped everybody, and, you know, there would have been no competition or whatever, though. But anyway, Lieutenant Hinawa's over here firing bullets at him, trying to distract them or whatever, though. And then, you know, Arthur over here swinging his sword and stuff. And, you know, then you also had over here Maki that was using her Tekio units though, but she was able to kind of deflect and make those different attacks go everywhere else though. And then for some oddball reason, you can see Captain Obi over here lifted up a whole entire column and causing that sucker to crack and fall. She still dodges it though, but it caused enough of a distraction for them to be able to pick up Shinra. And then now out of all times, there's a big old another earthquake that's about to go down now. So, if they were all caught down there whenever that earthquake was about to go down, the whole place could potentially fall down though. So basically they said, we gotta go though. And Shinra was like, no, I can't leave Sho though, but he's not in the state to be able to talk right now because, he has a big old sword in his chest, so they need to get him to medical treatment ASAP because dang, man, that sword straight in the chest must hurt. I don't know how it managed to miss all of his vitals and stuff, but man, that in itself is crazy. So anyway, they got him laid up into their vehicle, and they're like, man, we gotta get him to the hospital or whatever though. But then but Captain Obi was like, hey, you know what? Let's take her to the best person that we know. And he said, hey, let's take him to Captain Huang. And from there, we get to see Company 6 for the very first time. Just in the anime or whatnot though, and essentially they're rushing them all in there though, and then Captain Obi's like, hey, Captain Wong, can you use your powers to be able to save Shinra, because I know you're one of the best healers basically in all the land here. And essentially it was a good thing that they brought him here, because with anybody else, Shinra might not have been able to actually survive this whole entire thing. And it was at this moment where essentially all the rest of the company, they took Shinra in and they started to operate on him though. And then you just get to see like Arthur and Tamaki just talking to each other, and they're like, hey, where the rest of our company go? And he said, you know what, Vulcan's over there attending to Lisa, because even though they got Lisa back, she's kind of shook up though. Lieutenant Hinawa is dealing to his wounds because he got really beat up in his personal fight though. And then, the other ones are just in other various locations, throughout the company, though. And she basically breaks down what Company 6 is. And she essentially says, medical treatment can only be performed by the Holy Soul Temple. So since medical treatment is Company 6's specialty, they're an entity of the Holy Soul Temple. So that's the reason why, they brought Shinra here, because they basically specialize in medical treatment and stuff of that nature, though. So essentially it was kind of weird, because then Maki was over here kind of questioning, like, wait a second, fire can actually heal people though, but with Captain Huang, it's a unique kind of sense, because she basically uses her fire to kind of form the sort of kind of snake that represents kind of like medical treatment or just hospital stuff in general. She basically forms that her fire into a snake and is able to use that to go into the person's body and be able to kind of make a connection with their own personal fire, and it helps kind of relieve them of the pain, and that's what causes her to be able to heal them though. But yeah, it was through this process where essentially she was like, oh man, because since Shinra's an Adoliverse user, he was probably more able to survive that critical injury more so than anybody else if they were actually able to be in the same position as Shinra though. But anyway, she says that he's going to be able to make a full recovery though, and then she used all of his fire though, so basically he was out for a few days though, and he was still recovering though. And then, eventually he got to the point where he was able to wake up, though, and he was kind of reflecting back on the past and, how he wasn't able to manage to save Sho, though. And then all of a sudden you get to see a encounter from Captain Burns, and Captain Burns was there to basically greet Shinra. Just so happens to be whenever Shinra actually manages to wake up for the first time, though. And he basically says, oh, you know what, hey, you grew up and everything, though. But hey, I know you got some time to spare on your hands, though, so let's go ahead and have a little chat. And he's basically saying, you know what, let's have a discussion over that fire that happened 12 years ago. So then they're sitting outside, and, they gave Shinra some rice balls and some drink and whatnot, because, he was just still recovering and whatnot, though, hadn't had any food in a while, though. And essentially they start getting to the meat and potatoes of this whole entire thing, of then discussing what happened 12 years ago. And then Shinra's like, wait a minute, so you were the person there whenever I was a child and I lost my mother and my brother during that moment, and you actually knew that they actually took away Sho? And he started to get fired up. He's like, wait, why in the world did you not tell me that the White Clad the whole time have actually taken away my brother? And and then Captain Burns basically sends out a shockwave and backs Shinra up, and he's like, you know what, the truth would have done you no good, man. I was trying to save as many lives as possible though, so I wasn't going to tell you the truth. you try to be a hero out of nowhere, especially when at that state, whenever he was that young, or if he told him anytime before this critical moment, he wasn't going to be strong enough for him to be able to do anything against the white class. So why even tell him the truth? And he said, you know what, if you want the rest of this story, hey, you're going to have to prove it. And he basically says, come at me, bro. And that is it in terms of the first episode for episode 23. So overall, I thought it was a really cool, interesting thing. It finally concluded the fight between Shinra and Sho. I really hated the fact that Shinra wasn't able to save Sho, but you gotta make it a story somehow, though. So he's still gonna have to, keep fighting, keep training, and try to get better and learn more information about the White Cloud and their objectives in order to be able to fully save his brother, though. So hopefully we might be able to see that within some point within the future, though. But some very interesting stuff, though. And it was a really good thing that we got to get the next episode after this, because I had so many questions after that, though. But that leads into my next the next episode, though. But that is about it in terms of the episode 23 review. But make sure to stay tuned, as I'm about to get ready to review episode 24, The Burning Pass. So stay tuned.
You had 12 years to grow up. 12 years to build your strength, and still you nearly died. The truth would have done you no good.
That stab to the chest was a fluke. I'm stronger than I was when we sparred.
I doubt it. The fluke is that you survived. If you've truly gotten stronger, come and prove it. This is all I could save? One small, helpless life?
I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna destroy it. The monster's gonna pay for this. I'll kill it.
You've grown so strong, I can hardly believe it.
I'm gonna make you talk if it kills me!
Is that all the resolve you have? It's like the sputtering flame of a candle.
So starting off at the very beginning of episode 24, The Burning Pass, instead of picking up from the last moments of episode 23, we're actually starting off at a different area, a little bit further, down into the future, though. But we get to see, Shinra actually getting picked up by Vulcan. And he's basically, giving the ride back to the company and saying, you know what, hey, you know what, he's just basically kind of catching Shinra up on, the stuff that happened. He's saying, a lot of the people back at the company has, been really worried about you. You can kind of tell that, Shinra is kind of depressed and stuff. And he had a lot on his mind over the past events of what just basically happened, all things considering, though. And he basically says, you know what, even through your worry and stuff, hey, try to brighten yourself up a little bit, because you know what, Maki and as well as Sister Iris, they're both been worrying about you. They've been both worrying about you pretty frantically, though. And essentially, he got dropped off at the very front of the company, though. He met Sister Iris first, and she was super happy meeting him at first. And then he also ran into Maki as well. And, she came running down that hallway to be able to see Shinra see good again. And then you got to see Tamaki peeking around the corner and was like, oh, man, that jerk is back. And then she ducked her head back up in there, though. And then you get to see everybody else in the office, though. And then Tamaki is like, man, this dude had 9 lives. Like, man, why? Like, what is it going to take to kill this dude? And then Arthur's like, oh, hey, you're back. And then, Shinra and Arthur started, throwing sparks and shade between each other. Like, oh, hey, no one he was like, hey, Shinra said the Arthur was like, hey, I guess they weren't tired of you, so they hadn't fired you yet, basically. And then Arthur was like, oh, I guess heaven would never accept the devil, huh? And they were just throwing some shade at each other, though. But it was just kind of funny to see, Company 1 just kind of interacting with each other once again. And, it's sort of kind of like a sweet moment, because, everything's been super serious for like these past 6 episodes or so, though. And overall, it's pretty good to see Shinra being able to reunite with his company once again, though. And then it was at this moment where Lieutenant Hino also saw him, and he said, hey, you know what? I want to, go ahead for you to report on everything that basically transpired within the past events, though. But hey, you got to talk with Captain Obi first. That takes priority, though. And then you get to see him, walk into his office, though. And it was at this point in the moment where basically for the rest of this episode, we rewind back to the past of whenever Shinra first got up out of the hospital and started talking to Captain Burns, because this is where, oh shoot, okay, we get a lot of answers and stuff from this, though. But you know what, action comes first before the plot. So we're gonna play it out by that. And you got to see Shinra going head to head with Captain Burns, because he said you're gonna have to prove it if you're gonna want to know all the different information that I know from the past, in terms of, you know, just making yourself feel satisfied with yourself, knowing what's going on in order for you to paint the bigger picture though. And you know, Captain Burns, you know, this is his way of talking. Like, you know, this dude action speaks louder than words for him though. So he needed to figure out whether or not Shinra actually got strong enough to the point where he can accept the truth, not do anything rash or bash, and, you know, be able to actually do something about it. So during this moment, oh man, this is like one of the last fights we actually got to see within this season though. Man, these two were going head to head though, but Captain Burns is a freaking furnace. Like, this dude over here, like, what the heck? Like, this dude, you know, the way how he channels his fire, he basically makes a good old blaze, and it just, you know, all parts of his body is just literally on fire. So every little muscle and fiber in his being, whenever he does a punch, it's all at max. It's like 1000%. And, you know, and you got to see two of the other lieutenants, one from the Company 6 as well as one from the Company 1 that was assisting Captain Burns. They were basically over there on the sidelines kind of watching all of this kind of go down though. And you know, it was at this moment where, you know, he was just basically saying, you know what, hey, you're going to have to prove the answers, though. And then you get to see a little bit of a flashback scene where, you know, where Captain Burns actually saved Shinra, and he's like, dang, all this destruction, and I was only able to save one life. So essentially, he was hiding the truth from Shinra this whole entire time because he wanted to make sure that he was protected and he didn't do anything rash or stupid, though. But then it was during one moment where Shinra basically was able to go fast enough and hard enough to where he was able to penetrate that sort of kind of like fire dome-ish shockwave that Captain Burns basically had around his body though, and he basically was able to bruise Captain Burns' arm. And then it was like, okay, you know what, this is proof that you did get stronger over these past 12 years though. So I'll go ahead and tell you the information that I have known. So basically, settle down, boy, because man, this stuff is about to shake you up. And essentially we get rewinded back in the past 12 years ago, and apparently the White Clad has been, you know, in the works for the past 12 years. It wasn't just recently, no, it was for the past whole entire 12 years. And you get to see Hamea as well as some other dude that seems to be older than her, actually, you know, associated with the White Clad and everything though. And these people actually knew that the Adola Burst was going to be born, you know, a newborn baby was going to be born that had the Adola Burst before it was roughly even born. So that's why they were even there on the scene when all of this mess happened with the fire where Shinra basically lost his whole entire family. So that in itself actually sounded pretty crazy though. But it was during some random moment where Shinra was looking at his mom, and her mom just fully went fully combusted and started to go infernal right in front of Shinra's eyes though. And if you remember some things that basically was revealed back in the past, you know, one of the White Clad members essentially said, hey, look, you know what? You know, Infernos actually kind of originate from Adola Burst users because it was like a moth to a flame, so to say. So the Adola Burst users were the way how they sort of kind of channeled it, and that was the way how they basically created Infernos, though. But anyway, Shinra's mom didn't just turn into any regular old Inferno. No, she actually turned into a full-on demon. And you got to see her kind of walking around super creepy, like her eyes set aflame and everything though. And she was basically looking for her baby. Because, you know, even within your infernal state, you still have a little bit, a little bit of your memories of the past or whatever though. And then all of a sudden we get to see the evangelist just show up out of nowhere, and it seems to be that the evangelist is holding Sho. And it was at this moment where, you know, Shinra's mom, being the demonoid she is, you know, started going crazy and stuff, and, you know, her eyes just started to burn even brighter with sun. And then, you know, the dude that was actually assisting Hamea basically say, hey, you know why we wear these, why we always cover our eyes? And they were basically saying, hey, you know what, if we were to basically look at what would be the evangelist, you know, with our eyes, you know, our eyes will basically burn out, as we got to see with Shinra's mom. And that's why she had to like rip her horns or something like that, where it looked like she moved them where her eye sockets would be at, because she was in so much suffering looking straight at him though. But anyway, so basically no one can actually look at the evangelist straight on unless, so to say, you're like so to say, like you were Shinra or Sho, and you actually had an Adola burst within yourself, though. But anyway, that was really freaky and sort of kind of weird to kind of see all of that mess sort of kind of play out, though. And then Captain Burns basically says, hey, you know what? That fire was burning for a whole entire, almost about 15-ish minutes, so to say, this whole entire time. And, you know, the flames were so hot, they couldn't even put the fire out. So then, you know, the whole company one was looking at each other, was like, hey, what are we going to do? And he's like, hey, you know what? You run those hoses until they go dry, because we're putting out this fire, gosh darn it. And, you know, and then Captain Burns was like, all right, we're going to break in and we're going to see how many people we can actually save. And then immediately after they bust open the door, you know, Shinra just rolls on out and he's like, oh, hey, there's one survivor right here, though. And then Captain Burns was like, hey, you know what? There might be more people inside, though, especially after what Shinra said. He said, hey, my mom and my little brother's up in there, though. So he's like, all right, there's supposed to be at least 2 more survivors up in there. So he said, all right, let's go up in there, though. And then, you know, and then it was at this moment where you also saw Hamea, you know, back at the top of the roof, and she's, you know, whipping her arms around, doing all this crazy stuff, though. And based upon what we know about her now, she was able to use her electrical powers to be able to control people and things of that nature, though. So essentially, the white clad members there, they were trying to get, you know, Sho, because he was a Adola burst user. So they were trying to find a way to get that baby out of the fire. And that's what Hameo is essentially working on. But then Captain Obi is walking up in there, though, and for some reason, his eye starts to irritate him once more, and it was kind of, and then it just went full on Inferno, though. And then he notices that, hey, there's a demon in front of me that's holding a little baby. He's like, what the heck are you doing with that baby? And he wanted to go save it, though, but all of a sudden, the demon just rushes out of there, busts through the window, and just runs out of there. And he's like, dang, the whole place is about to come down now, so I'm going to have to leave. And he runs out of there, and essentially, Hamea used her powers in sort of kind of a way to be able to tell, you know, that demon to be able to bring the baby to them, though. And then it was at this moment where the demon kind of took off with their baby or whatever, though. But essentially, it was at this point where the white clad, essentially at that moment, actually had access to Sho, and it was at this point where, you know, Sho was taking down Shinra's life and there wasn't anything else. And then Captain Burns started to reflect back on this thing, and he's like, wait a minute, there's an Adola burst here, there was, you know, also a demon that was there, and also an Adola link. Like, what the heck was going on? He's like, dang, this was not no ordinary fire, like something really is going down. And he was thankful that he was able to save one child, though, but he was unfortunate that he wasn't able to save the other 2. And it was at this moment where, you know, Shinra and Captain Burns just kept on talking. And essentially, he basically said, hey, you know what? There was one time that I actually created a Adola link, and I actually got to see hell for myself one time. And it was at this moment where he basically lost his eye. And that kind of goes to emphasize the point that with Hamea and talking with the other white clad member when they were on the roof, saying how they couldn't directly look at, you know, people that were in hell, especially the evangelist himself. And that's the reason why, you know, Captain Burns had to, you know, has that eye patch over it, what was his eye. So we actually got that question got an answer, because I was kind of wondering, you know, how in the world he actually managed to lose his eye and whatnot, though. And then, you know, and then it was at this point where Captain Burns essentially said, you know what, I basically told you all the information I know about that fire from 12 years ago. So, hey, you know what, that's all the information I know. So, hey, you know what, keep getting stronger and stuff, because, man, we're dealing with some crazy stuff, though. And then Shinra starts to reflect back in the past, and he's like, wait a minute, that first time whenever I got brought into the Nether, you know, if you remember a few episodes ago, he was looking at this weird demon beast, and he was looking down at it, though. It was at that moment where Shinra was actually looking at his mother. His mother was that one that was that demonoid thing that he was looking directly at while he was in the Nether. So he's like, wait a minute, you know what? If I can actually form an Adola link, once again, is it possible for me to be able to see my mother like that? And not only just that little bit of information that we figured out during that moment, though, but actually whenever he was in the Nether, he saw one other person, and he actually saw the company Ford's captain, Agu, and he was down there in the Nether. He's like, wait a minute, why in the world was this dude down in the Nether? That doesn't make any sense. Like, he shouldn't be down there at all. Like what the heck? Like, something's not adding up. And he basically figured out that, hey, one of the lieutenants that's working in here in the Company 6 was actually related to Captain Agu. So, you know, that's the only little tiny lead that he basically had to go off of at this point, and trying to figure out some more leads that can get them associated again with the white clad and figure out what is their next moves, though. And then, that was basically all of the events that kind of transpired before Shinra actually got to meet with Captain Obi again in the office, though. And it was at this moment where he's like, man, I wasn't able to save Sho, but hey, this is the information I was able to kind of get from Captain Burns. And then, Captain Obi was like, oh, you know what? I was about to make some connections myself in order to try to find any kind of potential leads or figuring out, where we go from here, though. And he was basically saying, you know what? No matter what happens, though, we're going to figure out, what happened. And we're going to try to find, because basically his mom is still out there somewhere, somehow, in that demonoid form, somewhere out there in the world. So basically, and then Shinra's like, you know what? At this moment, he's like, hey, if I run into her again, I'm going to find a way to basically turn her back to normal from her being the demonoid version. I'm going to bring her back. And that's what he says one of his next goals is, along with still trying to save Sho at the same time, though. And that's essentially where the episode ends for the most of the meat and potatoes, though, right before the ending played, though. And then we got to see some moments, afterward, and, Captain Obi basically threw together a big old party. You got to see everybody there in terms of, you got to see, Princess Hibana. You saw all of Company 1 there. You also got to see, Captain Benny Morrow along with his lieutenant as well. And it just seemed like everybody was having a good merry old time. And, they were basically just saying, hey, you know what? Captain Obi was throwing this party, for Shinra, getting better, and for him making his full-on recovery and stuff. And essentially that is where the episode ended, though. So that's pretty much it in terms of all that transpired within the episode 24, The Burning Pass. And gosh, I gotta say, man, I'm glad they finally gave us some of those answers in terms of, stuff in the Netherworld, stuff with dealing with hell, the Adola link and stuff, how, the events that actually transpired during that fire, because everything that Shinra was told during that fire was alive to be able to protect him, so he didn't do anything kind of rash or anything like that, or brought any other kind of unwanted need or attention, because if they knew that Shinra was an Adola Burst user as well, in which his powers basically got awakened whenever Sho kind of, went all out, they would have been after him too, so thank goodness he was able to kind of survive that, so he even gave himself like a fighting chance or whatnot, though. So overall, it was a really good, solid episode, a really good way to be able to end Fire Force. And that was it in terms of all the season 1, though. But get excited, because at the very end of this, they basically did confirm that yes, there is going to be a season 2, and it's going to air during the summer, and it should come back with another full 24 episodes, though. So once it's summertime again, we'll have a whole nother span of what will be half of a year watching Fire Force again, though. So it's all really exciting, though. But I just want to take the time out and say thank you for everyone that's been tuning in to my weekly reviews for Fire Force. It's been a really good blast being able to sit down and be able to talk about and discuss all the different events that kind of transpire within Fire Force. And if I give it the opportunity, would I want to do this again? Yes. But then again, there's also so many different other animes that I want to actually review for a first time event, though, so I just had to basically play things by ear, whether or not I still be able to review this whenever it does come back, though. But I been really enjoying reviewing this whole entire first season, though. A lot of great cast of characters. The voice actors did a phenomenal job. David Productions coming in with that solid animation, some animation that I hadn't seen animated quite well, and within all the different kind of animes that I'd seen back in the past, though. But overall, it was really good fun, joy, and a delight to be able to sit down and talk to y'all about all these different Fire Force episodes. So it was really fun, and I just thank y'all and appreciate y'all for everything, though. But that is about it in terms of my episode 23 review over Smiles, as well as my episode 24 review, The Burning Pass. So yeah, thank y'all so much for tuning in each week, and it's been a really good fun, joy, and a delight, though. But that is about it for Fire Force and me reviewing it, though. So I'm signing off for the very last time on my Fire Force review, y'all. So remember, y'all, until whatever video I make next, lock tone.
I live for the chance to get revenge on that demon. After 12 years, it hurts to think that it might have been my mother. But I was wrong about my brother's death, so I can't rule this out either.
Tell me this. If your mother has become an infernal, and it turns out she's still around,
then I'll save her. I'll find a way to turn her back into a human being.